Welcome back to another Blender tutorial. So today we've got a fun topic. Astroveo, we just put out a video about the new planet that was discovered by Kepler, K2-18b, and there was some, lots of news going around that it may have life on it because of the detection of a biochemical signature, dimethyl sulfide and dimethyl disulfide. So we put out a video basically walking through the paper and explaining that while this is exciting, it is also very preliminary, and it's an encouraging start, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done before you can say, oh, well, there's definitely life on this planet. But it's still a fascinating object. So today I have a Blender tutorial for you guys. In the past, I've made tutorials on alien planets. On my old channel, is my alien planet tutorial is my most popular video, and I thought this was especially kind of fitting because many of the articles that talk about this planet have some rendering or artwork showing the planet itself. And this is really funny because I actually know that some people have used my previous tutorial to make stock photos that have ended up in articles from magazines like Forbes for these kinds of pieces. And so I thought that's really cool, and I wanted to make another one, a more up-to-date version of Blender on a kind of recent topic that's a little bit relevant. And I'm saying this also because it's something that I love the most about these kinds of videos, that we put out these tutorials for free, but then you can take them and you can learn how to make these things, and you can sell them as stock photos or sell your expertise, and people will pay money for this. And so it's really, really cool. This person who uses my tutorial to generate these images, and he sells them these photos for $12 a pop, or I'm sure there's you can get it for cheaper with a deal through the Shutterstock or whatever. But you can turn this into a living, and I think that's really cool. So we're gonna try to make a K2-18b. It's really straightforward, so it's a good sort of beginner planet. K2-18b is a Hycean world. So based on what we know from its characteristics, we think it has a thick atmosphere with covered with ocean, the surface covered with ocean. And that's what we're going to make today. We're going to make a planet that has some clouds on it, and basically just a big ball of water, and we'll walk through how to do that. So let's get started with that. So let's open up Blender, and we're in Blender now, and we're going to delete everything, including the default cube, and we'll save this. I'll just save it as tutorial.blend. Okay, so for our planet, we're going to need 3 components: the ground, the clouds, and the atmosphere. And all 3 of those are just spheres. So we're going to start by adding 1 sphere, work on the ground, and then progressively add the others, and we'll tweak everything as we go as needed. So let's begin. I actually just want to make sure that I have screencast keys on. I will cut that out. All right, so now we've got screencast keys enabled. The way I deleted everything that was in the scene was I just hit A to select all, and then X, and then I clicked to delete. Okay, so let's dive in. We're going to start by creating the sphere for the ground. So do Shift A to open up your Add menu. So this will allow you to add a bunch of meshes or curves or lamps or cameras, anything you want. We're going to click on Mesh, and we're going to add a UV sphere. So a UV sphere is basically the sphere of flat faces, like a disco ball, and you can change the settings of this sphere in this menu over here, which we're going to want to do. But be careful, if you click off of it or do anything else, the menu goes away and you can't get it back, at least not easily. So just make sure you change the settings before you click off of it. So we're going to update the number of segments to 128. And you can see it's going to add more segments, kind of running longitudinally. And then we're going to update the rings, which is the latitudes. And now you can see it's just a little bit denser. And this is as far as we need to go to make it look good in the render. So we're just going to cheat the rest of the way, and we're going to shade the sphere smoothly so you can't tell that there's individual faces there. So if you bring up your search it depends on how your Blender is configured. So for example, in my configuration, spacebar brings up search for me, so I'm going to hit spacebar to do that, and I have select as the right click, not left click. You may have it different, but either way, you're going to want to bring up your search. For me, that's spacebar, and just search for smooth, and go down to shade smooth. And now we have a smooth sphere. We'll scale this up by 5, so if you hit S, this allows you to scale this around, and if you hit the number 5, it will scale it up by a factor of 5, and hit enter. Now you've got your big sphere. And we're going to rename it by double-clicking on the name up here and call it ground. Okay, so now it's time to add a texture, and the first texture is going to be super easy. To do this, we're going to split our window in twain, and use the node map, the shader editor, to edit the texture of this, or the material. So just bring your mouse up to the right here, and you'll see it turns into a cross when you get kind of near this corner. Click when you see the cross, and then drag to the right. This is going to give you 2 separate windows that you can sort of manipulate independently. And if you go up to here, this allows you to switch the mode of the window. So right now we're in the 3D viewport, which allows us to look around the scene, but we're going to want to switch to the shader editor. Now, we're going to add a new material, so we want to color this using some set of instructions. And that's called adding a material. So we're just going to create a new material here, and now we can adjust the properties of this just by changing this color or any of these settings. If you want to see what that looks like, we can go into rendered view. So switch over to your right panel here, and then click on the render properties tab, switch down to cycles, and if you have a GPU, you can switch to it. We're also going to go down to the output properties and check off render region for later. This will restrict the region that is being rendered to just the camera. Right now we don't have a camera though, that's fine. So we're going to render this. You can either click up here on viewport shading and then choose rendered, or just hit Z and choose rendered view. And now we don't see anything. Why? Because there's no light in the scene. Right now we're only being lit by our world, which is this down here. And in fact, we can take the the world, which is down here. We can take the strength and turn it all the way down to 0, and bring the color down to 0, and this just gives us a nice black background, which is good. And we need to add a light now, so we're going to add a sun lamp because we'd like a sun in our scene. So if you do Shift A again, and then go down to light, and then add sun, you're going to get this nice sun lamp. Okay, and now we're going to rotate it so that it's kind of giving us a like a side view here, like kind of how you might imagine seeing the Earth. And we're going to increase the strength of this sun lamp. So go down to the sun properties here, the object data properties. It's like a little light bulb. And we're going to increase the brightness up to 5, and that just gives us something a little bit more striking, which is what you want from a planet render. Okay, so we've got our light set up, and now you can see if we select the planet and then mosey around with this color thing, you can see that it changes the color of the planet, and we're altering the properties of the material. Now, K2-18b is a Hycean world, so it's covered with water. So we just need to make the whole surface look like water. That's super easy to do. We're just going to give it a slight blue tinge, like this, and then decrease the roughness, which changes how sharp the reflection is. So we're going to make the reflection kind of sharp, like that. And so now you can see as we move around, the reflection kind of moves with us, and you can see it mimics like it's reflecting off of an ocean there. And that's pretty much it. Later we're going to adjust the color depending on how we feel about how it mixes with the clouds and the atmosphere. But for now, this is pretty much what a world covered in only water would look like. Okay, so let's go on to the clouds now. So we're going to duplicate this object by doing Shift D, and now we can move it around. If you hit S, you can also scale it. If you hit G, you can move it. If you hit R, you can rotate it. We're going to hit S and then scale it up by 0.1%, so 1.001. Hit Enter. Okay, so now we have 2 spheres. One is called ground, the other is ground 0.001. We're going to rename this to clouds. Okay, and we're going to get rid of the material on it. So now we have this white thing, but underneath it is still the planet. Okay, so we're going to want to add the clouds now. There's a really easy way to do this. If you just look up NASA clouds map, you can get a clouds map of Earth, which will be sufficient for our purposes. So if you scroll down a bit, there's going to be this blue marble clouds. I'm going to go with this 810 kilobyte one. It's 2048 by 1024, not the highest resolution thing in the world, but you can download the high resolution one if you want. 21,000 pixels by 21,000 pixels. It's just a lot bigger, and it's not really necessary for this level of tutorial. So I'm going to download this small one. So you're just going to click download, and you can save it to a directory of your choice. I have it saved to our directory over here. And we're going to need to just remember where you saved it, because we're going to need to load it back in. So let's add a new texture. And we can call this texture clouds, or maybe cloud material. Clouds material, so we don't mix it up with the object name. Then we can go over here and rename this to ground material, or the ocean material. Okay. Let's add the clouds. So the way we're going to add the clouds is we're going to incorporate them as a diffuse map that's mixed in with some transparency. So let's first start by getting rid of that node and using Shift A and hitting search, and replacing it with just a regular diffuse. And we can add that here. And then we're going to mix this in with a transparency. So now, if we play with this slider, you can see we reveal the surface below more or less. Okay, so let's add our clouds. So if you click this diffuse, if you make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on active, so if you go to Preferences, Add-ons, type Node Wrangler, and just make sure that's checked off. When you hit Control-T, it'll automatically add these three nodes: a texture coordinate node, a mapping node, and an image texture. These two nodes basically tell Blender how to take this image texture and apply it to this surface. So we're going to leave it on UV and not change any of the settings here, but we're going to open the image texture and choose our downloaded clouds texture. And now you can see immediately it just adds it right to the surface, which is really cool. And it already looks pretty good, which is awesome. We could leave it like that if we wanted, but what I'd like to do instead is I'd like to tell Blender to make the clouds transparent where they are, where there's no clouds, and then make the clouds less transparent where there are clouds. So let's do that by taking the color output from here and plugging it directly into the factor shader. So the factor input, sorry. The factor tells Blender where to make, where to apply these two material nodes. It's pretty easy to see how that works if we just add a color ramp. Let's take this color ramp here and, take this color ramp. That's not where I wanted to put it. I want to apply the color ramp to the factor. Right there. There we go. So if we take this color ramp and use Control Shift and click, another benefit of Node Wrangler, you can play with the values here and see how it brightens up or restricts the black and white. Now, where the where the color is white, Blender's going to use this top node, and where it's black, it's going to use the bottom node. So let's go back to the material. And what we want to do is play with this until we get something that looks good. So right off the bat, you can see as I pull this in, it's making it transparent in the clouds, which is the opposite of what we want. You can fix this in two ways: by swapping the inputs, or you can just swap the color ramps. And now you can see, all right, it's we can see underneath the clouds where there aren't any clouds, and they're basically perfectly opaque where there are. So you can just play around with this until you get something that you kind of like. So, it may take some experimentation. For example, I don't like how dark the edges are there. I think it looks super ugly. So, I might switch this to ease to try to get it to go more gently into the clouds, or even B-spline. I might, we can add another mix shader. So if we duplicate this with Shift D and add it in there and then mix it with the transparency, you can see it kind of helps with those dark lines around them. And now we can kind of go to town and, let the clouds shine a bit more. So, something like this, you know, it's gonna take finding just the right combination of the color ramp to you know, avoid those dark lines. But if you just keep messing around with it, there we go. Okay, there we go. This is looking much nicer. Okay, we can play with this a little bit just to make sure that it's coming through. Yeah. So just play around with it. It's gonna be completely up to personal taste. I kind of like the way this looks. You know, you've got this blue marble covered with clouds. That looks good enough for me. Okay, so once you're happy with the way your clouds look, we've got to add the atmosphere. So you're once again going to make sure your clouds are selected. Hit Shift D and scale it up by 1% again. Oops, sorry. So S and then 1.001. And now we're going to remove this material also. Rename this to atmosphere and add a new material, which we'll call atmosphere material. Okay, and you can see once again our planet is still under there. It's just a little hidden, and we're going to change this to make this look like an atmosphere. So if you look at an atmosphere, like a picture of the Earth from space, what does it look like? So it has this really interesting effect where as you approach the edges of the planet, you can see the color kind of fades out a little bit. It's less apparent when you're looking at the planet directly on the side, but it's more apparent when you're looking at the planet from far away. And this is a very simple thing. It's called Fresnel, but it's a very simple Fresnel atmosphere. Yeah. So it's a very simple trick that you can do that will make anything you're working on look more realistic. So we're going to implement that here, and Blender has a really nice tool that lets us do that very easily. So let's adjust our materials. So hit X to get rid of the material, the principal BSDF, and then replace it with a diffuse again. Plug that into the material output. Now we're going to add in a mix shader. Place it here, and we're going to mix it with the transparency as before. Okay, and now we're going to add in a layer weight node. And this has this nice Fresnel and facing node outputs that will let us control that effect that we want to achieve. So take the facing output and plug it into the factor, and you'll notice that it's making things faint. It's making things transparent around the edges and opaque in the middle. That's the opposite of what we want. We want to flip that. So just swap those inputs, and now you can see you get that sort of blue marble effect that changes with the orientation, which is really cool and exactly what we want. Okay, let us play with this blend value, and you can see if as we reduce it, it pushes the edge further to the side. It pushes the scattering further to the edges, and we can play with the color because you'd expect this to be some kind of color. You know, you can make it maybe some green to like make it, you know, evoke the, oh, maybe there's life here, or you can keep it blue to kind of, you know, emphasize the presence of water. Or, you know, K2-18b is around a fairly red star, so, you know, you might expect, you can maybe do something like this to make it feel like it's being shined upon by a red star, and we can play with the sun lamp as well for that. I think I like the, maybe there's life here angle, so I'm going to give it like a green tinge, just a touch. Something like that, yes. Sorry for the hammering noise, by the way. I think my neighbors are doing some construction. Yeah, I think something like this looks really cool. Okay, so now we've got our planet. You know, like I said, you can adjust the sun lamp. Since K2-18b is near a red star, it's maybe a little bit redder. But I actually kind of like it when the light's pretty white. So I think it looks cooler this way. All right, so we just need to add a camera, render our scene, give it some glow. We got this. So let's do Shift A to add a camera. And now you're going to want to either go to View, Viewpoint, or Align View and align active camera to view, or just use Control Alt Numpad 0, and this will point the camera at whatever you're looking at right now. So let's move the camera around a bit using R to rotate and G to grab, and we're just going to kind of want this planet to like fill the screen from the side like this. And you can kind of make it however you like. Maybe something like this to make you feel like you're floating in space. And you can play with the sun rotation as well, so you can illuminate more of the surface or less just by rotating it along the z-axis. I kind of like something like this. And one thing you can do too, like that maybe? Yeah. I think that looks neat. Maybe gibbous. Let's go with this. Okay, so now we've got our camera set up, we've got our sun lamp and everything pointing the way we want it. It's time to render. So go to your output and just make sure that the render region thing is checked off for the preview. That looks good. Your resolution you can play with here. So if you change this, it will change the resolution of the camera. We're gonna leave that all default. Now go to the render panel and change the time limit to like 30 seconds, just for the purpose of testing. When you want to do the full render, you can change the max samples and time limit to whatever you want. You know, higher the better. That'll give you better quality, but we're just gonna let it render for 30 seconds here since we're doing a tutorial. So make sure to stop the render here so you don't overtax your computer. You can probably hear mine spinning up its fans, and hit function F12 to render. So it's gonna take 30 seconds to render this. You can see it's running through the samples, and it's putting together the image. It looks like we ran into some, it looks like something weird's happening here. That will be just, you just play with, you just need to play with the color ramp to fix that. We can try to revisit that and see if what's causing that issue. In fact, let's do that right now before we finish rendering. That's why I like doing the, you know, the 30 seconds at first, just to see if there are any problems. So what is going wrong here? Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, so we accidentally went back to the way we did it at the beginning. This is an effective technique to get things looking the way you want it, like to put clouds on the surface, but I actually kind of like the way it looks without this. Like, if I just took this out and plugged it directly in here, like I kind of like the way that looks, to be honest. So we can leave it like that. This is a good technique to know. But I kind of like the way it looks without it, so we'll just leave it without that. Basically what happened was, remember at the beginning when we had the color inputs the wrong way and it was making the center of the clouds clear? I was playing around with it and I guess I didn't notice that I accidentally swapped them back, and that's what was causing the issue, where the clouds were getting transparent in the middle again. But it turns out it looks better without this. This technique works really well for like something like with a high resolution cloud image, and if you're trying it on something like Earth where you really want to see everything that's going on through the clouds. But in this simple case, it may be sufficient to just mix it with the transparency, because the underlying surface is just a featureless blue continuum. Oh, sorry, featureless blue ocean. Doing too much supernova spectra of featureless blue continuum. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's try rendering again. So it's going to take 30 seconds here. It'll tell you, you know, how long the last frame took, how long the current one has been taking, how much time is estimated remaining. You can see we've only got 20 seconds left because we asked it to only take 30, so it knows about that. It's going to try to get through as many samples as it can before that time limit, but you can see already, even with just 30 seconds of rendering, you know, it looks pretty clean. Like, it's not a lot of noise. If you know your scene is not very noisy, you can restrict, like, you know, it's not very dim, it's well lit, you can restrict the number of samples you're using. All right, so we've got a nice planet here. The last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add some glare in the compositor and some distortion. So switch over to your compositing tab up here and click use nodes. If you select Control Shift and then click, it'll give you a viewer node, which will allow you to look at this image in the background here. If you select the viewer node, you can then just move this to the side so you can have a clear workspace. And now we're going to add a glare node by doing Shift A. This will let us add glare to the scene. So Shift A, search for glare, and then drop it onto the composite and the viewer node. You can, by the way, what I did there was I did Control Shift and then click to get it over to the viewer node. And you can see it's added this streak there, which I don't like, so we're going to switch it to fog glow and lower the threshold all the way, and this adds some nice glow to the planet. If we up it a little bit, it's kind of giving us this ugly dark line. Oh, there we go. Increasing the size made it nice and glowy. And if you duplicate it, you can get even more glow, but then it starts to look weird. So, you know, maybe something like this, where you can kind of still see the planet, but you've got a nice glow. You can also just go totally no glow if you want. That's fine too. But we'll go with the glide. I like the way it looks a bit. It's a nice node to know about. And we're going to shift A again and add a lens distortion node. And now, once again, plug into your viewer output, check off fit, and then add in, 0.01 distortion. And you can see it's distorted it like a little bit more like a camera lens would. And if we add like 0.1 dispersion, you can see it's doing this really cool thing where, let me see if I can zoom in on this. Zoom. You can see it's doing this really cool thing where, if I go back, it's dispersing the colors, adding chromatic aberration to the edges of the image, and it looks really cool and sci-fi. And you can basically just modify this to taste, but that's pretty much the full steps. So this is how, for a beginner, you can make one of these renders of these alien planets in Blender. It's really straightforward and not difficult at all. Thanks so much for watching. Just let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about this tutorial or about K2-18b. David's also, online and ready to answer questions about the astronomy aspect, as am I. So we're here and we're excited to be learning about this stuff right alongside you guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.